Hey guys, got a bit different kit this week. This week we're actually going to be looking at the first 1/350th scale Shimakaze from Max Factory. This is a kit I've been looking forward to getting my hands on for a fairly decent amount of time since it actually was first announced, so let's get into her. Set that stuff aside. Now, right away, a couple of things to note about this kit is that it does come with a stand, which is a nice inclusion, as it is a full kit. You get this clear piece for the stand, as well as this runner of gold parts. Unfortunately, they cast it with that really cheap-looking sort of plastic metallic stuff. So, obviously, if you want to, get to look the best possible, obviously you need to strip this off. This runner also includes the two props, which are both in nicely cast. So, getting right into it, the hole's done in two separate parts. Obviously here, the lower half and the upper half, which does have some of the superstructure already pre-molded. Fit, at least on my copy, is pretty good. There's a little bit of bowing, but I suspect that's more to do with just shipping than any type of major fault on the casting. Next up, we've got a couple of the deck parts, fore and aft. Casting is nice. There's a fair amount of detail into them. Again, because this is a larger naval kit, a lot of this detail will actually show up, so it's nice that they did include it. Moving on, we got a couple of the underside parts for the hull, including rudder and some of the keel parts. Not a whole lot to say there. Continuing on, we've got the smokestacks. They do give you meshing parts for the caps. However, obviously they're not going to be perfectly in scale for any kit, and unfortunately this is one of those areas where photo etch does, frankly, a better job, as the plastic just, ultimately you can't get it that thin without it being too brittle. But it's nice to include it, and overall, compared to others that I've seen, it does a pretty decent job, actually. Now we're getting into the bulk of the kit. This runner, we have some of the turrets parts, which are nicely cast. For sort of the first go for Max Factory at doing a naval kit, it's really high quality stuff here. We also have all the various searchlights, anti-aircraft mounts, as well as the rescue boats. Not a whole lot to really say here. The casting overall is nice. Again, nice that they included in the kit a runner of photo etch to take care of some of the more small detail, but overall I would say it's comparable to a lot of other manufacturers like Tamiya and Hasegawa in terms of the quality. One thing I will note, at least in terms of the casting quality, is here on the quad, on the torpedo mounts, is that they could have done a little bit more cleanup in the molding processes to get around it, even though this is on the bottom side, if I recall from the instructions, so it's not really seen, but it's still a little bit noticeable. Now, this particular fret you do get two of, so I'll go ahead and skip that, as well as another half fret and an additional torpedo. Continuing on, we got more of the superstructure. The detailing is very nice for the scale, and actually I would in some ways say is a little better than some of the other 350 kits I've seen, especially here in the bridge section. overall, very nice job on Max Factory's part. Thus far, I've been pretty impressed with the kit overall. Now, for our last major fret, we've got a lot of the antennas, some more of the superstructure, the masts, the smokestacks, the foredecking, which they do mold on the anchor change, which I would say they're okay. It would have been nice if they had maybe even left that off and allowed us just to add in like a photo etched or something else, but it's passable. I've seen worse, but overall, not a whole lot I can. I'm at a little bit of a loss for what else to really say, as they've done a pretty good job on building this kit. You do also get one little Renzo-chan figure, obviously much smaller than the one that I'd previously reviewed. So another thing this kit does come with is a 1/20th scale Shimakaze figure, which it comes unassembled, and let me get all the parts out of the box. So yeah, they give you a multitude of runners, including these flesh-toned ones for various skin parts. All are nicely cast, and for a figure that's in 1/20th scale, the detailing is quite nice. Again, there's not a whole lot to say. It's much the same as the figure kit or the main kit. Obviously, I'll go a little more detail once we get into the instruction sheet on the assembly. But overall, the kit does a great job of rendering the subject, especially both for being the first in this scale and for one of the first nail kits that Max Factory designed. So if they do continue this line, I'm actually really kind of looking forward to them. So let me close that up. Now, it does come with some stickers for a couple of the parts to accent the detailing. I do know for a fact, at least on these parts, they do have on the photo etch set, it has a separate part, so it'll be easier to paint, but or just out of the box, they give you a sticker for that. You also get a set of decals. Not a whole lot to say here. You know, it's a nice little inclusion, but given that the Shimakaze really does not have much in the way of markings, it's not that surprising. So let's move on to the instructions sheet. Now, right away, you're given full color CAD renderings for the instructions, which are very nice. They're clear, concise, and do a great job of telling you how to put this thing together. The overall breakdown is pretty simple. There's not a whole lot that you're going to get possibly tripped up on. And in a lot of parts, they do include these sort of breakdown instructions on how all the different parts are supposed to be finally assembled, which I think is great. I wish more companies would do this, as it does simplify the build process a large amount, you know, by making it so you're not trying to figure out exactly where that particular part is supposed to go. It will save you time on getting this thing built, especially given the number of small pieces you're going to be working with. Here, another example of what I mean on the breakdown of the various telescope and what have you for the upper bridge section. And they just do a very nice, clear, concise job of breaking everything down for you. Overall, like I said, it's a pretty straightforward build. Basically, if you follow the instructions, there's nothing you're really going to have to do out of sequence. Overall, yeah, I mean, they did a good job on this kit. Now, for the first run of this subject matter, I'm quite happy with it. Would have been nice had they done a little bit more detail in the various painting instructions, which we'll get to in a second, as they sort of saved everything for last, including how to paint up the figure. But overall, they just sort of did this. It would have been nice had they, in the build process, done a little more pointing out of what needs to be painted what with the actual assemblies as opposed to just waiting to the end. So overall, I would just say definitely look into getting this kit, as it's one of the best naval kits I've gotten a hold of. Sure, it does have some minor issues, but I would attribute a lot of that just to being sort of the first run. You know, and the fact that Max Factory is more known as a figure making company as opposed to a model kit company. For them to do this on their first go, as far as a naval subject, I'm quite impressed. You know, the quality of the castings and all that are very high, something you would expect from, you know, Hasegawa and what have you. So, like I said, for the first go from Max Factory on this subject, great. As far as the first 1/350 of Shimakaze, equally great. I do know, I can't remember exactly what company's coming out. I want to say Aoshima is coming out with a 1/350 kit as well now. Obviously, something to compare it to once it does come out. But for the first go, I would say it's definitely one to look at getting if you're into Japanese naval vessels. And heck, even if you're not, it's a good kit to build. So, yeah, that was a look at Max Factory's 1/350th scale Shimakaze. Good kit, highly recommend it. Does have a couple minor issues, but again, those are minor. Nothing that would really impact the overall build kit. So until next time.